Coming up on Arirang News, President Moon Jae-in urges schools to be thorough in their quarantine measures, with classes about to start next week. Students who are ill, he says, should stay home, and if a school has a coronavirus infection, it'll go back to learning online. The South Korean government says COVID-19 treatments could be ready by the end of the year. Clinical trials for a vaccine will also start, with one possibly ready by late next year. And because of social distancing, more South Koreans are staying home to eat. It's led to a rise in grocery prices, but also a trend of ordering ready-to-eat meals. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korean schools will be starting to reopen from next Wednesday, and so President Moon Jae-in has called for schools to be thorough in their quarantine measures. That, he says, will determine the success or otherwise of the new relaxed measures called quarantine in daily life. The first to go back will be high school seniors, followed by others in stages over the next few weeks. Here's the president speaking earlier today.
이제 학교가 방역의 최전선입니다. 마스크, 거리두기, 손 씻기 같은 기본 수칙 준수와 함께 교실 환기와 일상 소독 등 출장 관리가 필요합니다. 그런 가운데서도 학생들의 불편이 최소화되도록 그렇게 잘 운영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Moon said schools will be disinfected, while the government will set aside funds worth over $70 million to provide thermometers, hand sanitizers, face masks, and thermal cameras. He also stressed the importance of cooperation among parents, schools, and the quarantine authorities, and he said 6 students are advised to stay home. Moon added that any school found to have an infected student will go back to online classes, whose quality, he said, will be improved. Yesterday, Korea's ruling party elected its new floor leader in parliament, and today the main opposition, United Future Party, had its own vote. The opposition has elected as its new floor leader 4-term lawmaker Joo Ho-young. The vote was held Friday afternoon after an hours-long debate session. Joo took the post with 59 votes out of 84, beating his sole rival, the former ambassador to China, Kwon Young-se. In his acceptance speech, Joo stressed that the next 2 years will be a crucial time for his party, which suffered a crushing defeat in last month's general election. He pledged to do his utmost to restore the party and regain public trust. Joo had served as floor leader once before for the minor Padun Party in 2017. He'll succeed Shim Jae-chul, whose one-year term ends Friday. At least 11 people have died and hundreds more are in hospital due to a gas leak at a plant in India belonging to South Korean chemical maker LG Polymers. Reports say people were gasping for air and some collapsed face down on the street. The source is believed to be a chemical tank that was left unattended because of the country's lockdown. Our Hong-yu reports.
A deadly gas leak at an LG Polymers plant in southern India on Thursday has killed at least 11 people. Around 1,000 people were admitted to hospital, and about 20 of those are in critical condition. An official from Andhra Pradesh state where the incident occurred said on Friday that those seriously ill include 10 children, and the death toll is likely to rise. On the second day since the chemical gas leak, more people are being evacuated from nearby villages within 3.5 kilometers of the site of the leak. 3,000 people were evacuated on Thursday, but authorities did not say how many more have been evacuated on Friday. There were also false reports that the wider evacuation orders were due to a second leak at the factory. But Seoul-based LG Chem said that it is just a precautionary measure in case tank temperatures rise and cause another leak. The company said that it's pouring water into the tank and doing what it can to keep temperatures under control, and it pledged to ensure that casualties receive treatment quickly. Authorities said the gas leak had largely subsided.
I also underline that we will be there till that leakage is totally plugged, and other measures to neutralize the entire chemical situation there is also being taken. So overall, the situation is under control, and I think overall we can say that now it is a question of rehabilitation and treatment of the people who have been affected.
A tank of styrene gas that had been unattended for a long time due to the COVID-19 lockdown in the country is suspected to be the source of the leak. Hong-yu, Arirang News.
The South Korean government says the country is developing COVID-19 treatments that could be ready by the end of this year. Clinical tests will also begin this year for a vaccine, which could be ready by some point next year. Kim Jae-hee has the details.
South Korea is developing treatments for COVID-19, and they could be ready by the end of this year. It will also start clinical trials of vaccines sometime this year. Hopefully, following successful tests, a vaccine may be developed by next year. This is according to a pan-governmental group set up to assist the development of treatments and vaccines for COVID-19. They held a second meeting on Friday. The group consists of top officials from health, science, finance, SMEs, and food and drug safety ministries, as well as the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and civilian experts. An official from the group said that clinical trials are underway for 7 existing drugs to see if they can be used to treat COVID-19. The official added that a positive outcome from some of the trials could lead to the development of a treatment as early as the end of this year. 3 types of possible vaccines will also begin clinical tests before the end of this year, and hopefully a vaccine will be available by the second half of next year. To help speed up the process of developing a cure, the government has also revised regulations to allow the Red Cross to draw blood samples for research purposes. Previously, only medical clinics have been allowed to draw samples. Meanwhile, the government is also pushing to make the country's COVID-19 response measures, dubbed the K-quarantine model, a global standard in tackling epidemics. A policy council composed of government officials and experts was launched on Friday. The council will work to come up with a detailed roadmap for the K-quarantine model and propose it to the International Organization for Standardizations. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Song Soo-young, professor of business at Junggang University. Professor Song, thank you for making time on this Friday.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me again, Devin.
Well, stocks in New York were back up overnight, in part because of a surge in China's exports. What's the story today in the markets?
I think overall the global market, stock market has shown the surge of the indexes, so including Dow Jones, Nasdaq, S&P 500, and the over interest is the crude oil futures also increases. So this reflects the expectation of the recovery of the trade and the Chinese economy. That is reflected in the crude oil futures price increase. However, a week ago, I have seen that domestic market in China, particularly real estate has shown recovery, and the traffic jam has revived. So that might include the domestic market also recover in China. So at least that is good news, and trade conflict between U.S. and China will be ameliorated for the time being. So that's why the stock market has shown some positive response all over the world.
Indeed. Well, the Korean won has gained a bit against the dollar in the past few days, but there's so much uncertainty out there. U.S. unemployment numbers coming up for April, for one thing. Where do you see the exchange rate going?
Yeah, I think the March jobless in the U.S. has recorded a 4.4%. So that is a very high drop of the increase of the unemployment rate. But particularly some people, and including the Federal Reserve Bank chairman of Minnesota, Mr. Kashkari, has expected the April unemployment rate could be reached 16% or 17%. Even some people claim that could be 23%, 24%. So we have to wait and see, because in several hours we are going to see that the April jobless rate and unemployment rate in U.S. that could be reflected in the U.S. economy, prospect of U.S. economy. However, because of some early response by the Federal Reserve, dropped the Federal Reserve rate to 0, and they are going to maintain that posture until the coronavirus could be overcome. So that at least it could have a negative, but for the time being, the effect would be just a midterm, and then the all U.S. and including U.S. and the China economy is expected to recover.
Well, now the Korean government posted its biggest ever fiscal deficit in the first quarter. We're expecting a third extra budget sometime soon. Tell us about that and what impact it might have on fiscal soundness.
Yeah, actually, the deficit of 54 trillion won has been recorded until now, and that totaled government debt against our South Korean GDP is 36.5%, which is equivalent to 699 trillion Korean won. However, it does not have a much impact over the government deficit or debt level because when compared to other countries, it's very low. And the fiscal package for the Korea has it used to be a 5% is a little bit, but however it is increased because of the supplementary budget has been added up to support the coronavirus affected people's payment compensation. So it has reached 150 trillion Korean won. That is going to be a fiscal package in total would be 7% of our GDP. So still it is. We have still enough room to support the economy, and the total of 150 trillion won fiscal package will be unleashed and for the upcoming several months. So I hope this would be signal the positive aspect of South Korean economy, but we don't have to worry about the government deficit at all right now.
Got it. All right, Professor Song, thanks so much for making time today. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, because of social distancing, more people in South Korea are eating at home, many of them using ready-to-cook meals. It's a trend that some say could last beyond the coronavirus outbreak. Joo-ho-young has this report.
Since the onset of the pandemic, Choi-jung has been looking for easier ways to get meals on the table for her family. One way she's found is ready-to-cook meal kits. She says she orders them often these days because they offer a wide range of choices, they're convenient to cook, and because the virus has prompted her to stay away from crowded grocery stores.
I order them online at least once or twice a week because we mostly eat at home as part of distancing in daily life. And the things I can make by myself at home are limited.
Many housebound consumers have made the same adjustment. A survey of 1,000 people across the country was released in March by South Korean food giant CJ Cheiljedang. According to the survey, about 83% of people are dining mostly at home, up roughly 24 percentage points on year. Of the respondents, 46% said the outbreak has them buying more ready-to-cook meal kits. As many people in South Korea have been refraining from dining out due to the outbreak, demand and the price of some staple food items have been on a volatile ride. As of Friday, according to the Korea Agri-Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation, the price of 100 grams of pork was about $1.84, up roughly 14% from a year ago. And the average price last month of a pack of 30 eggs was about $4.36, the highest it's been so far this year.
Prices have gone up. The price of food items like pork, eggs, and vegetables have risen because they are so commonly used in our daily meals in daily lives.
It's widely expected that cooking at home, like some other lifestyle changes, could last beyond COVID-19 when life returns to normal. Joo-ho-young, Arirang News.
Untold millions of jobs globally are vanishing, and some may never come back. But some companies are pulling together in various industries to lend their workers to each other instead of laying them off. Kim Da-mi has this report.
Hoteliers have turned into warehouse staff as companies that have closed their doors due to the COVID-19 crisis are temporarily lending their workers to firms with labor shortages. Warehouses around the world are in full operation 24/7 following the skyrocketing number of online transactions and orders. In fact, Amazon has hired around 175,000 extra workers to meet the high demand. Meanwhile, worldwide travel restrictions have also meant that workers in the travel and hotel industries have been put on unpaid leave or even been laid off. To get through these challenging times together, around 80 American firms, including Hilton, Amazon, and FedEx, have teamed up to send their workers to where they're needed the most.
Industries overall are struggling, so sharing workers is one way for companies to ensure their survival. Governments also need to guide those companies with measures that help thaw the frozen job market and change the wage system to reflect productivity.
Companies don't have to fire their workers. Instead, their employees can work at these temporary workplaces. They will return to their original jobs after the crisis ends. This concept originated in China, where around 4 million people have regained jobs as of late March. The International Labor Organization said back in April that over 80% of workers around the world have been affected by workplace closures or changes in working hours. This sharing of workers across industries is expected to keep employment from falling even further and lift the burden from both struggling and busy companies between now and the end of this pandemic. 김다미, Arirang News.
And that does it for this newscast. Thank you for watching.